The many talented individuals responsible for putting Doctor Who on our screens put so much care and attention into even the tiniest of things. The only downside is that most of these details won't be noticed by the vast majority of viewers. And though they won't affect the plot or drastically change your views on the show, they deserve more appreciation all the same. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Who Culture, here with 10 unnecessary Doctor Who details you need to know. Number 10. Doctor Who Double-Decker in the Forest of the Night. Doctor Who seems to have a thing for planting Easter eggs on red London buses. Planet of the Dead's bus featured an advert for a company owned by Joshua Naismith, who would go on to appear in The End of Time. But that example is nowhere near as audacious as the double-decker featured in Series 8's In the Forest of the Night, which seemed to be advertising Doctor Who itself. The bus in question appears very briefly towards the start of the episode, and if you look very, very closely at the poster emblazoned on its side, you should be able to make out the now iconic Series 8 12th Doctor costume reveal pic together with a shot of Clara from Hyde and a generic photo of the TARDIS. And it gets weirder. This wasn't something cobbled together by the production team, but a piece of fan art made in anticipation of Series 8, which can still be viewed online today. It's not clear quite how or why this happened, both from a behind the scenes and in-universe perspective, but however you square it, you can't deny that it's a rather intriguing detail. Do you know what, in fact, it's just given me an idea actually. Should we do a list of all the clues that Doctor Who exists in the Doctor Who universe? Let us know if you'd want to see that, and also if you can think of any examples, because we may need some help with that. Number 9. The 11th Doctor loves knitting, Cold War. Just before he regenerated, the 8th Doctor offhandedly asked the Sisterhood of Khan to bring me knitting. 4 incarnations later, and he would appear to take that hobby much more seriously. In The Impossible Astronaut, the 11th Doctor casually remarks that he's late for a biplane lesson in 1911, or it could be knitting or biplanes. And we never found out which it was, or whether the Doctor ever mastered the art of flying, but this wouldn't be the last time he showed an interest in knitting. In the same series, in The Wedding of River Song, the Doctor passes time by reading a magazine titled Knitting for Girls. Then in Cold War, the Doctor's pockets are seen to contain a Barbie-style doll, a toffee apple, and a ball of yarn. Usually, whenever the Doctor's pockets are emptied, the contents are fairly random, but here there actually seems to be something of a method to the madness. Sure, the doll and the toffee apple have no immediately obvious use, but the yarn clearly implies that the Doctor has, after those previous teases, finally found the time to take up knitting. Sadly, we never got to see any of his handiwork, although I would say it's a given that at some point or another he did attempt a long, multicoloured scarf. What say you? Number 8. Ominous aerials, the Idiot's Lantern. The Idiot's Lantern won't make it possible for you to forget that there's a coronation on. Indeed, this story surely contains more Union flags than any other. But aside from all the red, white and blue bunting, one of the other things that hits the Doctor and Rose when they arrive in London on Coronation Day is the sheer number of households with televisions, many more than you'd expect for the time. As we later learn, these televisions, manufactured by Magpie Electricals, are key to the story's villain, providing it with the means to steal the faces of unwitting residents. However, it wasn't just the television sets that you should have been paying attention to. As production designer Edward Thomas revealed on the episode's DVD commentary, just as much thought went into the television aerials, which were shaped like swastikas to allude to the shadow World War II continued to cast over 1950s Britain. As the Doctor explains to Rose, rationing was only just ending when Queen Elizabeth II ascended to the throne. The symbol cast by these aerials can hardly be described as subtle, but in the context of the episode, this is a pretty obscure detail, and rather appropriately, given the location of the aerials, will no doubt have gone over many viewers' heads. Number 7. Ace's musical outfit, The Power of the Doctor. For fans of late 80s Doctor Who, the return of Ace in The Power of the Doctor was a super exciting prospect. Thankfully, the episode didn't disappoint, with Sophie Aldred once again battling Daleks and appearing alongside Sylvester McCoy, all while wearing her iconic bomber jacket. Just like old times. However, as exciting as it was to see this piece of clothing make a comeback, there was also a cool detail to be found in Ace's other costume too. Specifically, take note of the 3 pins on her lapel, some silver and red quavers, the musical note kind, kind, not the crisp kind, and a gold trumpet. These were deliberately chosen to evoke the jazz-themed t-shirt worn by Ace in her second story, Remembrance of the Daleks. Ace has always used costume as a means of expressing herself, and her pins have always had some special significance, be it to the character or to Aldred herself. In fact, famously, Ace's Blue Peter badges were actually Sophie Aldred's own. So it's fitting that even in more ordinary attire, she was still able to incorporate a little personal touch. Number 6. Color-coded Time Vortex, Series 1-4. In the RTD1 era, Doctor Who's brand strategy was more on point than ever before. This extended to the show itself with an unprecedented level of continuity between the designs of the TARDIS and the sonic screwdriver. But an even niftier detail that you might not have noticed is that there was also a color coding system for the time vortex seen in various episodes. The rule was simple. A blue vortex meant that the TARDIS was traveling backwards in time, while a red vortex meant it was traveling forwards. Every TARDIS vortex shot in Series 1-4 abides by this principle. In Series 1, for instance, a blue vortex is used to indicate the historical settings of the Unquiet Dead and the Empty Child. Meanwhile, one of the most memorable uses of the red vortex is in the pre-title scene of Utopia, where the TARDIS, complete with stowaway Captain Jack, hurtles towards the year 100 trillion. Of course, both variants also appear in the title sequence at the start of each episode, with the TARDIS initially travelling through a blue vortex, aka the past, then switching to a red one, aka the future. This colour change is never remarked upon in the show, so it's not something that many people will have noticed, but once you know it's there, you'll never unsee it. This is such a cool detail. I did not know this. This is absolutely mind-blowing. Number 5. ATMOS Anticipation, Partners in Crime. In an ideal world, the universe of Doctor Who would be much more connected than it is. But because of the pace at which the show moves, this is rarely possible. That said, it does occasionally foreshadow plot points within the same series, or if the writers are really on the ball, a series or two in advance. RTD was particularly good at this, though he's since admitted that the original repeated meme, Bad Wolf, didn't acquire its full meaning until production was well underway. One of the more deliberate examples of foreshadowing came in Series 4 opener Partners in Crime. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but when Stacey's taxi pulls up, a sticker can be seen in the window for a company that we're about to become very familiar with indeed. ATMOS. ATMOS debuted a few episodes later in the Sontaran stratagem as a key component of the Sontarans' plan. If you want a really impressive example of forward planning though, consider that the Saxon Master was first alluded to not in Series 3, but way back in Series 2's Love and Monsters, during which the Absorbaloff reads from a newspaper bearing the headline, Saxon leads polls with 64%. Talk about playing the long game, and let's not even get started on the whole River Song thing, am I right? Number 4. A familiar jacket, Twice Upon a Time. The 12th Doctor's regeneration scene contained many nods to past eras of the show. The line, "Never be cruel, never be cowardly," paraphrased a description of the Doctor originally devised by classic Who script editor Terence Dix, which had eventually made it to the screen in The Day of the Doctor and subsequently been referenced in Listen and Hellbent. But what you probably didn't realise is that there's actually another lovely classic detail hidden in plain sight. Keep your eyes peeled when the Doctor is traipsing around the TARDIS like a Shakespearean actor, and you'll see, hanging from a hat stand, the velvet coat worn by the 3rd Doctor in Planet of the Daleks. Prolific Who writer and actor Mark Gatiss is the proud owner of this glorious garment, and he had promised to bring it in on Peter Capaldi's last day. And as he explained to Doctor Who The Fan Show, having brought it all that way, it seemed a shame not to get it in the shot at least. Number 3. Big Ben's on the Mend, The Christmas Invasion. The destruction of Big Ben, or to use its proper name, Elizabeth Tower, is one of the most iconic moments in all of revived Who. And yet, by the time of Army of Ghosts and Smith and Jones, the iconic London landmark is once again intact. This is at first glance a bit odd, but if you dig a little deeper, you'll find that the show did in fact address the repairs with an extremely missable detail in the interim invasion story, The Christmas Invasion. Like Aliens of London before it, The Christmas Invasion featured a sequence of a spaceship flying over the UK capital. And once again, London's landmarks featured prominently, including Big Ben. But if you look closely, you'll notice that scaffolding has been CGI'd into these shots as a nod to the damage dealt to the iconic clock tower in Aliens of London and the work being done to return it to its former glory. This also works as a nice metaphor for a country struggling to hold itself together in the face of alien invaders. It's also yet another example of Doctor Who predicting real-world events. Sure, Big Ben hasn't had to contend with a spaceship crashing into it, yet, but it was clad in scaffolding between 2017 and 2021 so that routine restoration work could be completed. Number 2. TEN-NANT pound notes, the runaway bride. Money, money, money. It's a running gag that the Doctor never has any. Most of the time, this isn't too much of a problem as the companion can instead foot the bill. However, in The Runaway Bride, the Doctor meets his match, a companion who also doesn't carry any cash. For the very good reason that she's actually wearing a wedding dress and is about to get married. Desperate times call for desperate measures, with the Doctor raiding a cash machine just to get Donna a taxi. However, if you think the banknotes used in this scene were just any old banknotes, think again. Unsurprisingly, manufacturing fake cash is against the law, so the production team had to come up with an alternative, something which from a distance would look real enough but also couldn't be mistaken for legal tender. In a deliciously ironic move, this counterfeit currency was adorned with a photo of the Doctor himself, together with the quotes, "No second chances, I'm that sort of man," and "I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of 10 satsumas." These banknotes still appear on the second-hand market from time to time, so you too can own your own 10th Doctor dosh if you know where to look. Just don't expect to actually be able to get a taxi with it. Unless the taxi driver is a Doctor Who fan, in which case he might accept it, you never know. Number 1. Painstaking polka dots, Vincent and the Doctor. The Doctor Who lockdown tweet-alongs were a great opportunity for fans to discover some new facts about their favourite show. Case in point, the Vincent and the Doctor tweet-along in March 2020, which featured live commentary from various individuals involved with the episode's production, including the one and only Bill Nighy. Unsurprisingly, Nighy didn't have a great deal to say. His character, Dr. Black, is only in the episode for about 5 minutes, but the one bit of insight he did give about Black's bow tie was golden. It said in the script he wears a bow tie, Nighy recalled. The designer asked me what kind, I said, how about navy polka dot? The only problem here was that finding a navy polka dot bow tie was easier said than done. In fact, the brief proved so difficult to fulfill that the costume team had to make the bow tie themselves from scratch. This meant sewing on each of the polka dots individually, one by one. Can you imagine the patience required? The end result was a completely bespoke bit of neckwear, fitting for a character as trendy as Dr. Black and an actor as accomplished as Bill Nighy. You might even call it modern art. Although why they didn't just say, "Sorry Bill, we can't find one, can you choose a different design please?" is beyond me. Maybe you just can't say no to Bill Nighy. And that's everything for this list, but not every background detail was put there intentionally, so why don't you check out 10 times Doctor Who accidentally filmed things you weren't meant to see. In the meantime, I've been Ellie with Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.